Hey everyone, welcome to the Multiverse fundraiser. Oh, I should probably have that banner going. Okay, so let's play a video. Stuart isn't here just yet, but maybe he'll show up in a few moments, and I will tell the story of how I met him before. Sorry.
And this is what we do. We do this every day. On Christmas Day, I was getting emails from hospitals. On Christmas Day, I was responding. Sickness doesn't take a break. We are there for the hospitals. We are there for the kids. We will do whatever we can do. And as I look and talk to you, and I talk to all the people who are watching this, be a part of this. However you want to be a part of this, be a part of it. If you can send us $5, send us $5. If you send us 5 comic books, a Funko Pop, a toy, a children's book, send it to us. However you want to make a difference, because we're all in this together. And here's the cool news. Nobody knows who I am, and here's why. When we give these materials to the hospitals give it to the kids and the parents. Comic book for kids and my name never shows up. When this stuff goes to the military, when my comic shop send the pallets, my name is never there. And that's great. That's all right. Because it's not, as I said, about us. It's not about promoting who we are. It's about all of us together in the industry making a difference for so many. And that's what we're about, Kelly. And that's what we do every single day of the year.
All right. So while we're waiting for Stuart Sayger, I don't know. Have you met him before?
I have not. So I fortunately don't have any experience with him.
All right. So a couple of years ago, I was doing a show called with a woman named Heather Bador. We had a show called oh, my brain is broken right now. I'm so sorry. But we had a podcast going, and she invited him out to our show, and she's like, "Let's talk about comic books." I'm like, "Yes, let's do that." And so he actually did a live drawing for us on our show, and it was so cool how he was able to do the Joker using I think it was like coal art, and it just do it in matters of just minutes, and like it was so pretty just watching him work. And of course, like, I'm trying to ask questions, and Heather's talking. The two of them were just going on and on. I'm just like sitting there, just like, tell me more.
That is amazing to someone like me who is not naturally gifted with visual art in terms of drawing or painting or anything like that. So that's one of those things that just blows my mind.
Well, I try. I pretend that I'm an artist, but like I've drawn. I do some painting here and there, and I'm gonna play around with paints in a moment with Kelly and Keisha. So I can't wait for that. But yeah, whenever I'm around other artists, I get so inspired, and I'm just like, I want to try this. I want to see if I can do it. And I make a mess doing it, but at least I have fun.
And ultimately, that's what it should be. If it's not fun, as I tell people, you probably are doing something wrong. Cool.
So what? I know you did the radio play yesterday with us, and you actually rewrote it. You are talented in your own way. So
I adapted it from the very first Batman story from 1939, which was called The Case of the Chemical Syndicate, same title. So, which was also interestingly ripped off from a story from the Shadow Bolt novels, as like Bill Finger admitted that later on, where he was like, yeah, I pretty much ripped that story right out of that one. So Yeah, it was, again, I really like that original Bill Finger and Bob Kane run of Batman. I think that you can find like pretty much everything that we now consider like what makes a great Batman story. You find all the roots of that stuff in that original Bob Kane, Bill Finger run. It's just people, I think, have just been making it more complicated since then. So a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. And I love that. I love going back to the original, like the original way that radio was done, with all these radio plays. And I enjoy working with other people who do like who is inspired by vaudeville and all that. And
yeah, I had a really thorough theater education. You know, I was a drama kid. I was a theater minor for my undergrad, and I still write and direct plays today. So that's kind of in my background. And one of the things that my professor, Dr. Brian Billings, who is a brilliant, brilliant man, he writes, composes, and makes lyrics. So when he does a musical, he does all three things. He writes the script, he composes the music, he writes the lyrics. Most of the times there's at least two people working on a show like that, if not three.
Oh, wow.
So he's a brilliant man. And he gave me a very thorough education on theater, including the radio shows and the audio drama and how to make those things work. So it's fun, and it's a lost art form in some ways, right? Like,
it is.
At least in a mass form. Because before, as I don't need to tell you, but for the audience who might not realize, if you're Gen Z or a millennial, you know, before TV existed, radio was the mass form of entertainment. Even after they had movies, right? Because movies existed for decades before they had TV. And so that was the way that most people on an everyday basis were getting their entertainment. And those things were done live in a studio. They weren't pre-recorded. They were literally on the spot, people, actors in the booth doing all that stuff. And so, yeah, it was really fun to revisit that kind of thing here in 2024 on this podcast.
Well, one of the things when going through broadcasting school is they like drill it in your head. Radio is theater of the mind, so you have to if people are listening to your show, you have to paint them a picture.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And that was actually one of the hard things about adapting the script to a comic book, right? Because that's such a visual medium. How do you get that into a audio drama format? And what I had to really rely on was first person narrators, right, telling it from their point of view. And it wouldn't actually have worked out nearly as well if we didn't have the sound effects that you very kindly provided in that show.
No problem. I with some of those sound effects, I ended up creating my own, because it's like, okay, this sounds too light. I need to bring that up more, and so that's it. Gave me a chance to exercise my love of editing and a little bit. So thank you very much for the opportunity to do that.
Oh, thank you. If I may ask, which ones did you have to create yourself?
The car, like the jet engine and the car taking off, some of the some of the like the door smashing. I ended up having to shorten like the telephone up a little bit. So
that is so cool. I really respect Foley artists, again, because I really don't have that talent, but I really respect like what you guys are able to create with sometimes next to nothing, right? In terms of those sound effects. I mean, again, back in the old days, those guys in the radio shows were like, taking a balloon, right? And like making all of these different sound effects. Yeah.
There's actually people on Instagram and TikTok that show you how some of these sound effects for cartoons and stuff like that are made. And I I unfortunately don't have the patience to go out and try to recreate these videos, but good on them for providing those videos and giving us like the background look of what is involved.
Yeah, because once again, wow, they do so much with so little, and it's really cool.
Even like the background work of like the Star Wars movies, how they came up with the laser sounds, like just them just hitting poles and trying to get that right that right ting.
And the lightsabers too, right? In that first movie, I don't know if it continued in Empire or not, but how they came up with I think where they had the blades laced with that reflective material, and so when it spun and they had the light going just well in camera, right, it looked like it was glowing. And I mean, again, that was just crazy. Like, who comes up with stuff like that, right? It's just it again, I'm the guy who like creates the problems to where people like you and like them have to figure out a way to make it real. So I really appreciate those guys.
So was that the only play that you've worked on before, or is there more plays that you?
No, I've got a background in this, right? I've been doing this for a while. That's my primary creative outlet. I also just recently have started doing like short stories and poetry, but that's a pretty new thing. And I rely very heavily on my editor, Crayle, to make sure that those short stories actually come off well and have description as opposed to just dialogue, because that's what plays are more about, and that's actually part of why I like plays. But yeah, I had a play that was done. The first one that was done professionally was actually done by Texas A&M University. Texarkana did a radio, or an audio anyway, version of a one-act play I did called The Briar Patch, which was about Brer Rabbit and Joel Chandler Harris, if you're familiar with those characters from American folklore. And that was a really, really fun play. Has some deep things to say about American history and racism and all of that kind of stuff. But it was a good one. And then I've had some things done after that. A couple years ago, I had a play done at Paris, Texas Community College, which was called The Fairest of All, which is taking essentially two different fairy tales, mashing them together and putting them in some kind of urban setting and talking about human trafficking. So that was because I like to talk about frivolous entertainment stuff in my plays that are stay away from all the deep issues.
Have you done any of the French shows at all?
The which shows? Sorry,
the French circuit.
I have not.
No?
I would like to. I mean, for what it's worth, I do speak French, so I mean, I could potentially do that. And I pull from I have a lot of French inspiration, like the French fairy tales and whatnot. So,
interesting.
Yeah, so that one, The Fairest of All, it's taking two different French fairy tales, Little Red Riding Hood, and also a little bit of The Fairy, both from Charles Perret, and mashing them together to talk about that issue in today's society.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm actually... I also, like, another side gig I do recently is I translate some French fairy tales into English, because I teach them, and I found that a lot of the English translations are not great. So, like, at least the ones that are just, on the internet for free, right? Yeah. A lot of them have, how do I put this? They have, like, more early modern English Shakespearean kind of language, so like these and thous, and if you give that to college students today, they tend to like give it the thumbs down. That's lame. So I decided I'd just start doing it myself. So the first one I did was The Fairy by Charles Perret. I'm almost done with my Beauty and the Beast translation, so I'm almost finished with it. Yeah. So I would love one day, like, I'm ambitious enough. I don't know if I'll actually be able to accomplish my ambition, but I would like to take my play, The Fairest of All, and translate it into French and do a French language version, because there's so much French.
That'd be neat.
Yeah, and then maybe, And then I could probably try to submit it to some kind of French theater and then cry because, they, could tell it's not a first language French speaker who did it. So, yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, I actually was trying to be an actor last year, and here, I'll show you. So this play, I actually had a character.
Oh, cool.
So Lala Lunacy, I was supposed to play a rich, snobby kind of character. I made it up until the day of the play, and I thought we did a really good job with it. Some of us kind of missed our lines, but we did our best with it. And I thought we did a really good job. And then the director ended up cutting my character out completely for the rest of the show.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
You know what? It's okay.
That's showbiz, right? Yeah. That's showbiz. I have a play that I keep trying to get produced. It's a feature-length play, but it's like an anthology of one acts, and it's called Heroic Women. And it's actually about stories of different women from the Bible told in what I hope different styles of drama. So one of them is like a monologue, that's Eve, where she goes on a lot of rants. And then there's one that's like Brechtian. So it's like, the actors come out on stage and they talk to you as themselves and like, all that kind of stuff. So that it came this close, right, to getting performed. Yeah. And then 2 weeks before the show date, 2 of the leads dropped out. And then the whole thing just fell apart. And so, yeah, and that's just showbiz, right? That's how it works.
Yeah. So
it happens.
I want to try again and see where it goes, but I'm not gonna I'm not that upset. Like when it did happen, yes, I was upset, and I kept telling the other actors, it's like I really hope that I can return to the stage, and but it was a great experience. So I got to see I got to see how things were ran in the theater, and of course, like the director's all, hey, I should show you the sound booth and all that. And just
yeah, I bet you love that, right? The sound booth guys. Those guys.
Teach me how to use this so that I can make sure that the sound is better.
Yes. I'll tell you what, the sound guys are another group of people that I really respect because I'm not good at it, but I've been forced to do that job a couple of times. Oh. It is a rough job, right? Like that is not easy. That's always, when I do a show, that's why I always, when we take bows, I always point to the tech booth to make sure that we give them some applause too, because it's also often a thankless job, where nobody in the audience anyway really knows about that, or that there are actual people up there running those sounds, right? So Cool.
And what I love about it, every theater is haunted. Every theater has a story of a ghost, and so the theater that we were at apparently has a janitor ghost. So I'm just like, sure.
Yeah, that is. How do I put that? That's kind of like it's become like a status thing now, where like every self-respecting theater has to have some kind of ghost story, right? Or else they're going to be like, no one's going to take them seriously if there's no ghost, right? So that's how that goes. That's really cool. That's cool.
So I said to the guys who own the theater, I'm like, so have you guys met the ghost? Have you guys seen him? He goes, oh yeah, George hangs around with us all the time. I'm just like,
there you go. There you go. George the janitor ghost. That is great. Oh, like there's a theater in Texarkana where I live. The like big fancy schmancy historical theater is called the Perot Theater, because Ross Perot actually was the one who financed to save it, actually, way back when it was going to be demolished, and he paid to save it and also to restore it. So they renamed it after him. And they have ghost stories, but the more fun stories is, before his health really declined, it was like a rule of the theater that the box always had to hold 2 tickets for Ross Perot for every production, right? He didn't live in Texarkana, but just in case he ever like showed up to a show, like he had to be able to have a seat. And so there were always these like Ross Perot sightings at the Perot. Like people thought he was there and like claimed that, oh, he like brushed past me, or there was like this old guy in a red ball cap that we saw coming through. So he actually got more attention than like the stories about the Perot Theater ghost. Was the like stories of Ross Perot sightings were more of a thing.
Well, that's the funny thing. Like even with like I worked at for a short period of time in a hotel in one of our oldest hotels in my city, and again haunted, all these stories of it being haunted, and then I'm like trying to look up the story of this ghost and try to find like different records of her existence and all that, and I'm just like, okay, so you guys just made this up.
Yeah, and that's the secret of all theaters, is that all the ghosts are made up, right? Like, because like I said, everyone has to have a ghost, right? So they're gonna put some kind of story together to make it work.
Sell tickets and say,
exactly. Yeah. The funny thing about Texarkana, though, actually, is that this city is bizarre in that it does have a lot of history. Like Texarkana today, it's not really a big deal, but back when, it used to be a really big deal. Like during World War II, for instance, it was a train center hub. So like everybody who was drafted and was going overseas, they had to pass through Texarkana. And the train, that's where they would get on the train station to get going. So it used to be a bigger deal. Elvis used to perform here a lot, like back in the old days. So that sort of thing.
Yeah, and my city is very much the same way. Like we're a huge hub for trains and theater and old vaudeville. Yeah. We a lot of our old theaters are old vaudeville theaters, and so.
That's so cool.
I love my city. Like I love the history of my city, and sadly, a lot of the older buildings are being torn down for newer stuff. And it's but we have a great amalgamation of like modern day stuff mixed in with the old stuff. So, which is great. And I'm glad that we're keeping that our history alive in some way. But
yeah, for sure. Texarkana definitely has struggles with that. So one of the cool things, though, is like that Perot Theater, even though, the ghost is almost certainly made up, right? But they have such a great history going for them, because Texarkana also was built by gangsters. Like it was one of the gang towns back in the day. And they've got the Perot Theater, and across the block, they've got a hotel, right? That's the historic hotel. And it's called the Grimm Hotel. And that is like the perfect name for like a setup like that. And the crazy thing is, like, there used to be like rumors that there was a tunnel that connected the Grimm Hotel to the Perot Theater that like gangsters would use and such. And the cool thing is, Texarkana actually did the work to know that it's not just a rumor. It actually is 100% true. There's a tunnel that connects them. However,
fantastic.
Yeah. However, like that tunnel was so old by the time they found it that they don't let anybody go down there, right? Because it's like, extreme safety hazard. They have no idea what's down there, or, if it's even collapsed, in the course of time. But it's really cool that like, yeah, there really is this gangster tunnel between the hotel, it's called the Grimm Hotel, and the Perot Theater. It's a cool thing.
I mean, I much prefer the Grimm Hotel to our the hospital that is called the Misery. We actually, it's we have a Misery hospital.
That is the worst. I don't know if I can think of a worse name for a hospital.
It's kind of spelled like the French way, but yeah, either way, it's
Misery. Okay. Hey, Crayle.
Oh, no sound. Oh, there we go.
Oh, I just wanted to pop in to officially say that I'm not sure what's going on with Stuart. At this point, I don't think he will be showing up. I went ahead and made an announcement there. He's a great guy. I hope he's doing okay. And I'm sure this isn't like, I'm sure this isn't indicative of anything that should put anybody off of Stuart's work
For sure.
or anything like that. You guys are doing a great job managing the time there. We're talking about, theater, talking about your local legends and stuff. For anybody who's just tuning in and wondering what the heck is going on, the most important thing about this weekend is that we are fundraising for comic books for kids. We are the Multiverse Fundraiser. We're not just raising funds for a good cause. We are raising fun. So if you want to tune into the comments and use this time now to suggest fun, wacky topics for next year, or pick any of the three of our brains, we've got the time to do that. But we're going to first go ahead and run the video again that explains why we're here and what we're doing. Oh, nope, I clicked the wrong thing. Y'all, I've been like super sick today. So
the Multiverse Fundraiser is partnering with Comic Books for Kids to raise money for their cause. Their mission is to provide comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the United States, Canada, and the UK. We believe in the importance of providing stories that promote hope and bravery to kids who are facing things that are scarier than any supervillain. And we truly believe in this cause. To donate, you can either go to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/The Multiverse Fundraiser or directly to comicbooksforkids.org.
So that's the quick summary. Here closer to the end of our time, we'll be showing you some words from Mark Weiss, who more or less runs the organization. I feel like he might take issue with me saying, oh, he runs the organization, because he's a very spread the credit kind of person, but he has been the voice of the organization for the fundraiser this weekend. So that's what I mean by that. When I'm like, oh, Mark runs the organization, because he's shared some really great explanations about the impact that they have. Yeah.
And we did an interview, me and Kelly, and it's still like, it's heartbreaking knowing that there's kids in the hospital with cancer, but I'm happy to, as a cosplayer, to bring them hope and show them love when we get a chance to visit them.
Yeah, and I mean, on top of that, so comic books are really good for kids. In the past, they've been viewed as this like sort of like almost the way TV is, like, oh no, don't rot your brains or whatever. But we've got a lot more. Comic books have been around for a long time, and we've got a lot more data on what actually happens when people engage with comic books, and in children specifically. I mean, I'm not a professional researcher about academic accomplishments, but everything I've read indicates so far that the benefits are beyond just like the distraction and sort of soothing effect that it could have on a kid in the hospital. Kids in general who are visual learners can absorb new vocabulary in a way much better than through spoken repetition that you get sometimes in a classroom setting. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, comic books are a really good way to engage reluctant readers, which is kids who might have, you're too young yet, they're too young, or it's too soon yet to know what exactly their barrier is to getting into reading. It might just be that they think reading's not cool, or they're worried that it won't be fun, so they don't want to commit the time it takes. And comics being packaged in something that's bright, colorful, in a short format can introduce them those bite-sized reading bits that are fun, that help them move on. And even if they don't end up getting super into full novels or whatever as a fun pastime later because of the comics, they're still picking up new vocabulary. They're still attaching stories through the written word to the images that are there on the page. And it really stimulates the part of your brain that learns through stories, even in kids who normally don't like to read. So putting more comic books in the hands of kids is always a good thing, in my opinion. I mean, assuming that it's age appropriate. You're not giving them something that's going to be horribly upsetting or whatever. Giving kids appropriate comic materials it's a great thing to do. Yep. And then the added element with comic books for kids where they're giving it to kids who need it right now because they're in a hospital. It's ideal. Like we'd be hard pressed to find any more organizations where I'm like, yep, I like everything about that. So
and that's really cool. The great thing about comic books is it is a great distraction. Like it's a way of taking you out of your situation that you're in. I grew up in foster care, and that was comic books for me, was my distraction to my reality. And I'm sure a lot of you I'm sure you have the same thing, Crayle and Hollis, both with your passions. And I don't know, I because of comics, I have the vocabulary that I have now, and I had a bad learning disability all my life, where it's like my concentration, I could not concentrate in school, but give me a comic book and I could read it nonstop.
Yeah, no, they're great. I have chronic migraines, and sometimes reading a novel or something on an e-reader isn't accessible to me, but I still want to entertain myself in like a low impact, low noise environment. Comic books are also perfect for that too. You guys are doing a really great job carrying this conversation. I'm pretty under the weather, and I'm also still trying to handle a few back-end tasks for this event that's going on. The last time I looked, we were over 61% of the way to our goal. It's $1,500, and we were over $900 or
okay, I'm definitely reading it in Canadian money, because last I saw it was like $2,000 or something like that. I'm like, nope, that's definitely Canadian dollars. So you guys are making more in Canadian funds than you are in American. Just giving you that.
Maybe we should switch for next year. If you all want to take this time to talk to, so Willow and Hollis are two of our like ride or die volunteers for this event. If you guys want to give them any feedback on anything you would love to see next year, they'll bring that information to everybody on the board. I mean, we don't have like a super like this is the top of the structure and this is the, we're all a group of like people with the same goal of wanting to build connections and support charities in a way that celebrates all of our nerdy fandoms. So talk to Willow and Hollis just like it was somebody who's like in charge of the event about stuff you'd like to see, any questions, comments, or concerns in this time that we have. And otherwise, in the meantime, they're just two charismatic and interesting individuals. So you're not missing out on anything by missing out on the scheduled programming here. I would love to stay on and chat with them just because I enjoy that, except that my head is killing me. I appreciate you all so much, the viewers, the volunteers.
We love
everybody.
Thank you very much for what you have done for this convention.
Take care of yourself.
Yes, and hey, you guys at home, you all take care of yourselves too. It's really great.
Hydrate.
Right. My last thing that I'll say before I completely log out of here is it's been really great working with a group of people who, when you are sick, like people can come through, pick up the slack, do that in like a judgment-free way and all support each other. So I am hoping and wishing, if you're in the audience, that whether it's at your workplace or in volunteer work or something you do, that you have an environment like that and take care of yourself. Try to cultivate a space like that for yourself in your life. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for covering.
No
Take
problem.
care of yourself.
Will do.
And I will second what Crayle just said. Like, this is really a great group of people to work with. It has been so awesome for me working with you, Willow, and everybody on the audio drama, and Kelly and Crayle. It has been really, really awesome. I've been blessed, I think, with a lot of really good work environments. The other plug I'll put in real fast is the college I work at, the University of Arkansas at Hope and Texarkana. It is the best college I have ever worked at, because a lot of higher education institutions, sadly, frankly, just don't really give a flip about the students, and oftentimes the faculty either. They have become very, very profit hungry. But this college is not that way. It really does care about the students, and it really does care about bringing together faculty members who are enjoyable to work with and who can interact with students well and really care about those students, not just have them be numbers. So that's always a great thing.
And that's like when I went to broadcasting school, like it was great to work with other people who had the same passion as you, and bounce off ideas. And there was a moment where during our work, we had to do like a little acting bit, and my teachers actually told me that I was in the wrong class.
Willow, if you are petitioning for me to use you in like a future audio project, you're doing a good job of selling yourself. You really are. So like I will, because actors frankly are in short supply, good actors who are willing to work with you on projects like these, low tier, down on the front lines of the artistic scene where we're legit. We haven't sold out, man. We're down here, with the no budget, little to no budget stuff.
I'm just trying to get out of retail. That's my goal in life.
Oh, so one of my Dr. Billings, actually, the prof I had that I mentioned to you guys before, who's been a big mentor in my life to me. He always told me that everybody needs to work in retail at one point in their life so that you can have mercy on the people who are there still. You know what it's like. Yeah, I did some time in when I was in high school. I worked at the most interesting Albertsons grocery store in Texarkana. It doesn't exist anymore. But back in the day, it was there. And I think that the craziest store I ever had was this guy came in one day and he went right back to the seafood section and he had them load up his cart. Like, I'm not kidding you, the entire cart, right, with nothing but shrimp. He had an entire cart full of shrimp, nothing but shrimp. This is like a couple $100 worth of shrimp, right? And then he goes up to the front and he runs out the front door without paying for it, right? So he is stealing shrimp, right? And the funny thing was, the grocery store, they had cameras in the parking lot. So how they usually get shoplifters is that they'd be able to get their license plate numbers from the security cameras. But this guy didn't have a car. He just ran down the street with the shopping cart. So he got away clean. They never got him. He got away with it.
Wow.
Yes. I always wondered why he needed so much shrimp.
Had family to feed, I guess.
I suppose, like nothing but shrimp. So who knows? Who knows? But yeah, in your sorry. I keep speaking over you. I apologize.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for those of you watching, send in your comments because I maybe have something interesting to say, and Willow obviously has a much more interesting life story than I do. So that's how that goes.
So when did you realize that you were a nerd? I always love asking that question because like everybody has a different story to tell about their nerdiness. So it's
wow, I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. I have to think about that. So like, as my mom could tell you, like I was dressing up as Batman when I was like 3 years old, right? And I actually haven't totally grown out of that because I have the sports coat with
amazing jacket.
Thank you. Yeah, this is what I wear first day to class every semester. So give the students an idea of who they've got as their professor. I guess like the first time I became aware of like there being some kind of like cultural identity associated with liking superheroes and Star Wars and fantasy and things like that was probably when I was like 12, I think. It was probably later for me because I was homeschooled for a lot of my grades, not all of them, but I was homeschooled for a lot of that. So I was sheltered from some of like the bullying and such that other people have dealt with being nerds. So it probably was about that time that I realized, oh, like there's this whole like identity around being into superheroes and stuff, and I actually like am a part of that. So that was probably where it came into my consciousness, and it definitely, I mean, it's mattered to me since then that I have that. Like that's really important to me, and I think that anybody who's honest who works in academia recognizes that they are nerds. Like that's really all academia is that we're a bunch of nerds about different topics, different things.
Same thing with me. Like I've always flocked towards like the nerdy people in school, and like I think I was one step away from joining the AV club.
The what club? Sorry.
The AV club. Like I actually regret not joining the AV club, but I know a lot of people have that experience where they got teased and all that because of it. But I'm just like, no, man, like that club would have taught me so much more about editing and audio than I know right now. But I read comic books pretty much all my life. I gravitated towards like the nerdy type of movies. Like one of my favorite movies is Beetlejuice, and I have no idea why. That's like why that. As a child, I watched that movie constantly.
For me, the equivalent of that is the Jim Carrey Grinch. That movie is like deep within my subconscious, right? In so many different ways. And it doesn't really get old. Like there are some movies, Christmas movies, that I get fatigue after like years and years and years of watching. But I never really get tired of watching the Jim Carrey Grinch every year. Yeah. Now I know that some of my fellow English faculty are going to be ashamed of me saying that, because I do really, really admire Dr. Seuss, and I will even go on camera here and say that I do think he's the best modern poet. And that's going to be very controversial, I know, but I really think he was one of the best. And I know that the Jim Carrey Grinch is nothing like what Dr. Seuss meant the Grinch to be like. It is nothing at all, but it's a lot of fun. And I do really, I really like the original Grinch. I really like the original book. I really like the cartoon with Boris Karloff. I think that really captures what Seuss intended. But I also still think the Jim Carrey Grinch is absolutely hilarious, and I still enjoy it.
And it's funny. Speaking of Boris Karloff, the Mummy, the original Mummy, scared me to death. Like it was one of those films that scared me as a child, and like my sisters, they realized that, and so they would copy like the movement of him and chase me around the house like that all the time. I'm the youngest.
You got some cruel siblings.
It's okay, I got them back.
Oh, there you go. See, I keep cutting you off. I'm sorry, Willow. I feel bad about it. I'm actually the oldest of my siblings, so I have it the other way around. They probably have stories they could tell about me. So I don't remember doing much bad to them, but they could probably have stories.
No, I was a very reactive kid, so anytime that I got like picked on or whatever, I would definitely react. And oddly enough, I've had people apologize for treating me badly in school, and it's just like, really? Realizing now, like I'm like, no, I probably would have kicked my own butt.
Ouch.
No,
nothing worse than a self-hating nerd.
I was a very troubled nerdy kid. So it's
to some degree, I think all nerds are that way, troubled to some degree, because there is such cultural like you said, cultural bullying, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Like, bullies tend to pick on smart kids. I don't know if it's because they're jealous or because of other things, but that's just kind of how
I
it
don't know, but there was one bully that ended up, I don't know, we ended up having like a mutual agreement after a while. She came up to me, she's all, like, I started running away as soon as she came up to me. She goes, no, I have to ask you a question. I'm just like, what? She goes, do you have any loose leaf paper that I can borrow? I'm just like, yeah.
So you had like a Peter Parker and Flash Thompson kind of arc with that bully. Is that it?
Yeah. So I brought her to my classroom. I pulled out. I'm like, I have a scribbler. I don't have any loose leaf, but you can have it. So
Wow.
yeah, that. And then I think after that, she just stopped picking on me. So it's like, so we kind of bonded over the weirdest thing, but.
It works sometimes. As the good book says, kindness is like hot coals on their heads, right? Like, that is, I think, the only real way you ever win over your bullies is by being kind to them after they've treated you like crap.
Yeah.
And that's how it
that's pretty much it. Like, I don't know, like, I never, I don't like being mean to people. It's like, it goes totally against, like, I feel guilty.
Yeah.
I think that one of the reasons why I like the character of Dr. Fraser Crane is because if he goes away from his morals, he gets sick, and I'm just like, that is totally me.
Yes. Well, and that's interesting. I never thought about this, but that could be like either a part of like why we like superhero media, or maybe like a result of liking superhero media is like, for instance, Peter Parker has such a guilt complex, right? Like, that is just a fundamental part of his character, is the guilt complex. And I also like have a huge guilt complex in my life. And I don't know if that's why I like Spider-Man, or it is a result of having liked Spider-Man that I have that guilt complex. So
I call it a superhero complex, where anytime someone asks me, "Hey, can you help me with this?" I'm just like, "Yes."
Yeah. Well, yeah, you have to be careful with that, because you could get into like
it has bit me in the butt way too many times. But so I try to be very selective of who I help now. But in this case with this fundraiser, you know, I'm helping kids, so
there you go.
There is no guilt in that.
No guilt. There you go. So cool. Yeah, I'm hashtag not a psychiatrist, right? Not a counselor. As an English prof, like, we had a very basic psychological training in grad school, basically, and some undergrad, because there are somewheres where our fields intersect as you're analyzing characters, trying to understand their psychology. But there is a thing in psychology called a savior complex, right? Where like somebody has this need to be the hero for people, right? And to like try to save everyone around them. And I'm not saying you have this by any means. I'm not armchair
I'm pretty sure that's like a textbook thing with me. Is like I think my therapist hates it when I say I call it the superhero complex. But I think she knows why I use it, because of the fact that I'm a superhero lover. So
there you go. Yeah. The hard thing is like what people with that have to kind of come to grips with is the fact that you can't actually save everybody. And there's a lot of people that you can't save, period, right? Because for a lot of people, they have to make the decision to change their lives. They can't, that's not something you can for them, because it has to come from their own free will. And that's like not just me like acting like a perfectly sane person, rationalizing you crazy nutcase. Like, I have my own issues too, right? Like OCD is more my thing, where I have at times some crippling OCD.
Oh, so, interesting.
Yeah. So again, so I'm not a stranger to counseling either. The bottom line of that. Oh.
Yeah, I think some kind of, like, anybody who has gone through trauma in their life has had it, like, deals with like the psychological damage later on, and it does form up into either OCD or like people pleasing is another thing that is very common. And so, but yeah, no, I feel for you with the OCD, and sometimes I at work it comes out of me. It's like, no, it has to be like this, and like
I understand.
trying to put stuff away, and I like it like straight, and I come back to work and it's like, who put away all this stuff?
Yeah, I feel for you. Yeah, it is not an easy thing to live with, but the good thing is can improve, right? As long with all psychological things, like, and again, once again, I am not a professor of psychology, right? I am not a counselor, right? None of those things, but just as somebody, again, who has a very basic literary psychological training and then has been to a lot of counseling. What I can say to anybody out there who's struggling with any of those things, right? Savior complex, OCD, whatever you have, things can get better. Like, and the way that it gets better is when you choose that you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, to quote Dave Ramsey, and you get some help and you forward in that. I actually have my wife to thank for that, because she was the one who finally kicked me in the butt enough to say, no, you need to go to counseling. You need to get some help with this.
Go see a therapist. Like that was probably the best thing that I've done in my life, is to actually realize, hey, I need a therapist. And so I'm thankful. That was like probably the good thing that came out of COVID was, me realizing, oh shoot, yeah, I need to get my mental health checked.
You're right. And it was around that time period that I actually did start going to counseling too. So it's weird, right? I think that the lockdown like brought a lot of our issues to a boiling point, right? Like once you were locked in your house, like you can't ignore it anymore, right? You can't like distract yourself with other stuff. And so now you have to finally sit down and do the hard work of facing it. So, but I'm proud of you, Willow, for doing that. That's a
Well, I keep surprising my therapist too, because like I have this self-awareness that a lot of people seem to not have, and I'm just like, how are you not aware that something in your head just doesn't click?
Well, that's a good sign that you're not insane, right? Like that's the thing, right? People who are actually like mentally insane, right? Because having a mental health issue is not the same as being insane, right? Because everybody has mental health issues. Everybody, right? It's just a spectrum of like what kind or to what degree, severity, all that kind of stuff. But people who are actually insane are the ones who do not realize that they're insane, right? Yeah. Like that's the thing. Like if you're aware, like me, that you have OCD, that makes it easier to deal with, right? That doesn't make the OCD go away, but it makes you have some awareness, some tools, like you're saying, Willow, where you can kind of catch yourself, right? And know what your triggers are, right? And all that kind of stuff. But somebody who isn't aware of that, like...
Oh, I have I have severe moments of stupidity where I'm like watching myself do something stupid. I was just like, what are you doing?
Yep. That once again, that's
stop and just focus a moment.
Exactly. And that's what's showing you that you're not crazy. Right? That's the thing. Because if you don't have that self-awareness, you're up the creek without a paddle. Right? I mean, those are the folks that I feel really, really sorry for, right? That's hard. Because it's hard enough to live with it if you know. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. When someone else points it out, and it's just like, yes, I know. Like hearing the voice in your head screaming at you, and it's just like, I know. I'm giving myself crap for that too.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, we are coming up on the hour, and it doesn't look like we have any comments from the audience asking about anything. So I guess I'll ask you, Willow, do you have any last things to bring this very improv, random session?
This great conversation about everything.
No, you're a great conversationalist, so it's been fun.
No problem. I love getting to know people, so this is my way of like practicing for my podcasts.
Good.
Can you tell that I work in with the public?
There you go. Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Finishing thoughts. Like I enjoy being able to do this for comic books for kids, and I can't wait to see this fundraiser succeed and we surpass our goal. Again, we're with Canadian funds, we're just a little over $2,000. So, so that looks good on us.
Good. And also, just to be frank, I haven't looked lately, but your Canadian money is probably worth more than the US dollar at this point. So
I know I laugh every time I read that. I'm just like 2000, and I think it was like $26 that we're up to, and I'm just like, yeah, that's probably Canadian funds, because I could have sworn it was a lot less. But no, that's it. I'm all for pointing that the Canadian funds because it sounds so much better for you guys. Although I prefer your temperatures over over ours.
Definitely. Well, I'm so grateful that we had this time to talk, Willow. It's been an absolute blast to get to know you better. I'm going to play the ad for the end, and I'm also going to invite everybody to hop on over to our next panel, which is going to be a discussion with me and Kelly and Johnny about comic book history in World War II. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So jump on over there. Thanks, everyone.
The Multiverse Fundraiser is partnering with Comic Books for Kids to raise money for their cause. Their mission is to provide comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the United States, Canada, and the UK. We believe in the importance of providing stories that promote hope and bravery to kids who are facing things that are scarier than any supervillain. And we truly believe in this cause. To donate, you can either go to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/The Multiverse Fundraiser or directly to comicbooksforkids.org.